Your best relationship is you. The Secret to Happiness, Confidence and Lasting Fulfillment, published by Enlight Audiobook. The most important person you will ever spend your life with is the one staring back at you in the mirror. When you learn to value, trust and love yourself, every other relationship and every part of your life begins to transform. Introduction. Some of life's greatest absences are invisible. A person may possess success, admiration and meaningful relationships, yet still carry a quiet emptiness that no achievement can fill. That emptiness often begins with a relationship rarely examined, the relationship with oneself. Many people devote extraordinary energy to becoming someone others will admire. They pursue recognition, seek approval, and measure their worth through opinions that shift as quickly as the seasons. In doing so, they gradually drift away from the one voice that deserves their deepest trust, their own. The search for acceptance becomes so relentless that they forget an essential truth. No amount of external affection can permanently heal an internal lack of self-worth. Self-love is neither vanity nor self-indulgence. It is the steady conviction that your value does not fluctuate with failure, criticism, comparison, or rejection. It is the quiet strength that allows you to rise after disappointment, establish healthy boundaries without guilt, and move through life with confidence rooted in character rather than applause. Every meaningful relationship, courageous decision, and lasting achievement is strengthened by the way you see and treat yourself. This book is an invitation to rediscover that forgotten connection. It will encourage you to replace self-criticism with self-respect, uncertainty with inner confidence, and the exhausting pursuit of validation with the lasting peace that comes from knowing your own worth. The most extraordinary transformation does not begin when the world finally recognizes your value. It begins the moment you recognize it yourself. That moment can begin now. Chapter 1. Why we forget our worth. The slowest kind of loss rarely makes a sound. It doesn't arrive with shattered dreams or dramatic endings. Instead, it unfolds quietly, one compromise at a time. A child learns that praise comes after perfect grades. A teenager discovers that fitting in feels safer than standing out. An adult begins measuring personal value through promotions, compliments, relationships, or social approval. Before long, a dangerous equation takes shape. I matter only when others say I do. The tragedy is not that people seek love or appreciation. Both are natural human needs. The tragedy begins when those needs become the only mirror through which a person can recognize their own value. A mirror held by someone else is never steady. Opinions change, circumstances shift, and applause eventually fades. When self-worth depends entirely on external validation, confidence becomes fragile, and happiness becomes conditional. Modern life quietly reinforces this habit. We compare our beginnings to someone else's highlight reel. We celebrate achievements while ignoring character. We applaud perfection, but overlook progress. The result is a generation that appears connected, yet often feels profoundly disconnected from itself. Self-worth was never meant to be rented from the outside. It was meant to be cultivated from within. Nadia understood this lesson only after years of living for everyone except herself. Growing up, she was known as the dependable one. She rarely disagreed, never wanted to disappoint anyone, and constantly placed other people's needs ahead of her own. At work, she accepted extra responsibilities because she feared saying no would make her seem ungrateful. Among friends, she laughed at jokes that hurt her feelings because she wanted to be liked. Even within her family, she believed that love had to be earned through constant sacrifice. From the outside, Nadia's life appeared admirable. She had a stable career, a wide circle of friends, and a reputation for kindness. Yet every compliment offered only temporary relief. Every criticism, however small, felt devastating. If someone ignored her message or questioned one of her decisions, she replayed the moment for days, convinced she had somehow failed. The turning point arrived unexpectedly during an annual performance review. Her manager praised her dedication, but gently remarked that she struggled to set boundaries and often took on work that wasn't hers. Walking home that evening, Nadia realized something uncomfortable. She had spent years trying to become indispensable to everyone else while remaining almost invisible to herself. Instead of making dramatic changes overnight, she began with one simple promise. Every decision would answer one question: does this respect the person I am becoming? She declined unnecessary commitments without inventing excuses. She reserved quiet moments for reflection instead of filling every hour with obligations. She stopped apologizing for having opinions. The first few weeks felt unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Some people welcomed the healthier version of Nadia. Others resisted because they had grown accustomed to her endless availability. For the first time, she understood that disappointing someone's expectations was not the same as disappointing herself. Months later, a close friend remarked, "You seem different. You're calmer." Nadia smiled. "I finally stopped trying to convince everyone that I'm enough." Her confidence had not appeared because life became easier. It appeared because she no longer handed strangers the authority to determine her worth. Her story reflects a truth many people quietly live every day. We often inherit invisible beliefs long before we learn to question them. Childhood experiences, repeated criticism, unrealistic expectations, and constant comparison gradually become internal narratives. Over time, those narratives stop sounding like opinions and begin sounding like facts. Psychologists often describe this as the formation of a self-schema, a mental blueprint that shapes how we interpret ourselves and the world. Once established, the mind searches for evidence that confirms what it already believes. Someone who secretly believes they are not good enough will often notice failures more quickly than successes, criticism more clearly than praise, and rejection more intensely than acceptance. The brain is not trying to punish them. It is simply protecting the story it has learned to believe. Comparison deepens the problem. Today's digital world invites us to observe carefully edited moments from thousands of lives while comparing them to our own unedited reality. We see achievements without sacrifices, confidence without insecurity, and victories without years of unseen effort. Such comparisons quietly whisper that everyone else has already arrived while we are still falling behind. Yet worth has never been a competition. The oak tree does not envy the mountain, and the river does not compete with the sky. Each fulfills its purpose by becoming fully what it was created to be. Human beings, however, often abandon their own path while chasing someone else's destination. People-pleasing is another silent thief of self-worth. It disguises itself as kindness, but beneath the surface it is frequently driven by fear, the fear of rejection, conflict, or disapproval. Genuine kindness flows from strength. People-pleasing often grows from insecurity. One gives freely, while the other gives desperately, hoping acceptance will finally feel permanent. The remarkable truth is that self-worth does not suddenly appear after success, admiration, or perfect circumstances. It grows each time you honor your values, speak honestly, protect your peace, and treat yourself with the same compassion you readily extend to others. These seemingly ordinary choices become extraordinary because they reshape the relationship you have with yourself. As long as your value depends on changing opinions, your confidence will always feel borrowed. The day you begin measuring your life by your own principles instead of someone else's approval, you reclaim something no criticism can steal. The strongest foundation you will ever stand upon is the quiet certainty that your worth does not require permission from anyone else. Chapter 2. Rewrite the story. You tell yourself a single sentence, repeated often enough, can quietly become the architecture of an entire life. It begins as a passing remark from a parent, a careless comment from a classmate, an unexpected failure, or a painful rejection. Years later, the event itself may have faded, but the words remain, echoing beneath every decision. I'm not smart enough. I'm always the problem. Nothing I do is ever good enough. The mind has a remarkable ability to transform temporary experiences into permanent identities. The most powerful conversations you will ever have are not spoken aloud. They take place in silence, hidden beneath smiles, accomplishments, and everyday routines. While the world hears your voice only occasionally, you hear your own every waking moment. That inner dialogue becomes either a faithful companion that strengthens your spirit or an invisible critic that quietly dismantles your confidence. Many people assume that confidence is built by changing their circumstances. They believe a better job, a healthier relationship, or greater financial success will finally silence their insecurities. Yet countless successful individuals continue to wrestle with feelings of inadequacy because external achievements cannot erase an internal narrative. If the mind insists that you are unworthy, every victory feels accidental, and every setback feels like proof that the old story was true all along. Psychologists often refer to this tendency as the brain's confirmation bias. Once we believe something about ourselves, our minds instinctively gather evidence to support that belief while overlooking evidence that contradicts it. A single criticism may outweigh 20 compliments because it aligns with the story we already carry. The brain is not attempting to deceive us. It is simply striving for consistency. Unfortunately, consistency is not always the same as truth. This is why changing your life begins with changing the story you believe about yourself. Daniel never imagined that a sentence spoken in primary school would shape the next 20 years of his life. He was 9 years old when he struggled to answer a mathematics question in front of his classmates. Frustrated, his teacher sighed and said, "Perhaps you're just not one of the clever students." The words lasted only a few seconds. The belief lasted for decades. From that day onward, Daniel approached every challenge with hesitation. Whenever opportunities appeared, he quietly stepped aside, convinced someone else was more capable. At university, he avoided leadership positions because he assumed he lacked the intelligence to succeed. At work, he remained silent during meetings, even when he had valuable ideas. Each time another colleague received recognition, he interpreted it as confirmation that he simply wasn't talented enough. Ironically, his performance reviews consistently described him as thoughtful, dependable, and creative. Friends admired his ability to solve complex problems. Yet compliments never reached the place where his self-doubt lived. They bounced off the walls of a story he had been repeating since childhood. Everything began to change after his company offered a professional development program that included coaching sessions. During one conversation, the coach asked a simple question. "Who first convinced you that you weren't capable?" Daniel was silent. For the first time, he realized the belief he had carried for 20 years was not a fact. It was an opinion formed by a single moment, spoken by someone who could never have predicted the person he would become. That revelation did not transform his life overnight, but it changed the direction of his thinking. He began writing down every achievement, every solved problem, and every compliment he previously dismissed. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," he replaced the phrase with, "I'm still growing." Whenever fear appeared, he reminded himself that discomfort was evidence of progress rather than proof of inadequacy. Months later, Daniel volunteered to lead an important project. The assignment was challenging and mistakes were inevitable, but he no longer interpreted them as evidence of failure. They became stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks. By the end of the year, he earned a promotion. More importantly, he reclaimed something far greater than a new job title. He reclaimed the story of who he believed he was. Daniel's experience illustrates an important psychological truth. Human identity is surprisingly flexible. Neuroscientists describe the brain as neuroplastic, meaning it continuously reorganizes itself based on repeated thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. Every time you practice a healthier belief, you strengthen new neural pathways. Every time you interrupt destructive self-talk, you weaken the old ones. Like a forest trail that gradually disappears when no one walks upon it, limiting beliefs lose their influence when they are no longer reinforced. This process requires patience because the mind naturally gravitates toward familiarity. Negative thoughts often return, not because they are accurate, but because they are well rehearsed. Growth, therefore, is not about eliminating every doubtful thought. It is about refusing to treat every doubtful thought as absolute truth. Consider how differently we treat other people. When a close friend makes a mistake, we rarely define their entire identity by that single moment. We remind them of their strengths, encourage them to try again, and believe in their potential despite temporary setbacks. Yet when we stumble ourselves, compassion often disappears. We become our own harshest judge, delivering verdicts we would never impose upon someone we love. Self-compassion is not lowering your standards. It is refusing to confuse your mistakes with your identity. Failure describes an event. It does not describe a person. Rejection reflects another person's decision. It does not determine your value. Perfection is unattainable, but progress remains available every single day. Language plays an extraordinary role in shaping perception. Notice the difference between saying, "I failed," and "I am a failure." One describes an experience. The other defines an identity. The words appear similar, yet their emotional consequences are profoundly different. The stories we repeatedly tell ourselves become the lenses through which we interpret our future. A gardener does not blame a seed for failing to bloom after one storm. Instead, the gardener improves the soil, provides sunlight, and patiently nurtures new growth. Your mind deserves the same thoughtful care. Rather than condemning yourself for every weakness, cultivate an environment where healthier beliefs can flourish. Feed your thoughts with truth instead of fear. Replace harsh judgment with honest reflection. Celebrate effort as much as achievement. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The voice that once criticized every step begins offering encouragement instead. Doubt no longer occupies the driver's seat. Confidence emerges not because life becomes easier, but because your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. The stories that shaped your past may explain where you have been, but they are not obligated to decide where you are going. Every sunrise offers an unwritten page, and every decision presents another opportunity to become the author of a wiser, kinder, and more courageous narrative. Your future is rarely limited by the story that happened to you. It is shaped by the story you choose to believe from this day forward. Chapter 3. Stop looking for permission. A bird does not pause before sunrise to ask the sky whether it deserves to fly. The ocean does not request approval before reaching the shore. Nature performs its purpose with quiet certainty, yet human beings often postpone their own lives while waiting for invisible permission. Permission to speak, permission to dream, permission to fail, permission to become. It is one of the most subtle prisons ever created because its walls cannot be seen. They are built from imagined judgments, unspoken expectations, and the exhausting desire to avoid disappointing others. Many lives remain painfully ordinary, not because people lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they surrender the authority over their choices to voices that were never meant to govern them. Approval is comforting, but dependence upon approval is crippling. The moment your confidence relies upon someone else's agreement, your happiness becomes negotiable. Every compliment feels like oxygen, and every criticism feels like suffocation. You begin living cautiously, editing your opinions, concealing your ambitions, and shrinking your personality until it comfortably fits inside other people's expectations. Ironically, the world rarely rewards imitation. It remembers authenticity. Confidence is not born when everyone applauds your decisions. It begins when you make peace with the possibility that not everyone will. This truth became unmistakably clear in the life of Arif. For nearly 12 years, Arif worked as an accountant in a respected company. The position was secure, the salary was comfortable, and his family admired the stability it provided. Yet every evening, after returning home, he found himself sketching furniture designs in a notebook. Designing had fascinated him since childhood, but he had always dismissed it as an unrealistic dream. Whenever friends encouraged him to explore his talent, he responded with the same sentence: "What if people think I'm making a mistake?" Those words quietly dictated the course of his life. Years passed. Promotions came and went, but fulfillment remained absent. Every Monday morning felt heavier than the last. He wasn't unhappy because his career was difficult. He was unhappy because it belonged to a version of himself, created to satisfy everyone except the person living inside his own mind. Everything changed during an unexpected conversation with his grandfather. One afternoon, while helping him repair an old wooden cabinet, Arif confessed that he wished he had pursued furniture design years earlier. His grandfather smiled without looking up from his work. "Tell me," he asked, "whose permission are you still waiting for?" The question lingered long after the conversation ended. For weeks, Arif could not stop thinking about it. He realized he had spent most of his adult life seeking approval from people who had never asked him to abandon his dream. The greatest obstacle had never been his family, society, or circumstances. It had been his own fear of disappointing them. Rather than resigning immediately, Arif began taking evening design courses. He built small pieces of furniture during weekends and shared photographs online. The first few designs attracted little attention. Some received criticism, others went unnoticed altogether. Surprisingly, nothing catastrophic happened. People continued living their lives. The criticism he had feared for years proved far less painful than the regret of never trying. 2 years later, demand for his handcrafted furniture became strong enough for him to establish a small workshop. The journey required patience, discipline, and countless adjustments, but every challenge felt meaningful because he was finally building a life aligned with his own convictions instead of borrowed expectations. When someone later asked him what had changed, Arif answered with remarkable simplicity. "I stopped asking whether everyone would approve and started asking whether I could respect myself if I never tried." That decision transformed far more than his career. It transformed his identity. Arif's experience illustrates a lesson that extends far beyond changing professions. Every meaningful decision demands a certain degree of courage, because certainty is rarely available beforehand. Waiting until fear disappears often means waiting forever. Psychologists describe this hesitation as evaluation apprehension, the tendency to alter our behavior because we anticipate being judged by others. Although this instinct once protected human survival by encouraging social belonging, it frequently becomes exaggerated in modern life. We begin assuming that every decision is being carefully observed when, in reality, most people are far more occupied with their own concerns. The fear of judgment is often greater than judgment itself. Another invisible trap is perfectionism. Many individuals postpone important decisions because they believe they must first become completely prepared. They wait until they feel more confident before applying for a position, launching a project, expressing their feelings, or pursuing an ambition. Yet confidence is not the entrance fee for action. Confidence is frequently the reward for taking action despite uncertainty. Every accomplished musician once played imperfect notes. Every successful entrepreneur once questioned their decisions. Every inspiring speaker once stood before an audience with trembling hands. Mastery is rarely present at the beginning. It quietly emerges through repetition, resilience, and the willingness to remain imperfect while growing stronger. The remarkable paradox is this: authenticity attracts deeper respect than flawless performance ever could. People are not inspired by those who never struggle. They are inspired by those who continue moving despite struggle. Living authentically also requires accepting an uncomfortable reality. Not everyone will understand your choices. Some will disagree with your direction. Others may even criticize your growth because it challenges their own comfort. Their reactions belong to them. Your responsibility is not to satisfy every expectation placed upon you. Your responsibility is to ensure that your decisions remain consistent with your values, your integrity, and the life you genuinely wish to create. Healthy confidence is not stubbornness. It remains open to constructive advice while refusing to surrender personal identity. Wisdom listens carefully, but self-respect chooses thoughtfully. Every time you make a decision rooted in your values instead of your fears, you strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. Every honest conversation, every courageous boundary, every calculated risk becomes another promise kept to your own character. Eventually, something extraordinary happens. The opinions that once determined your emotional weather begin losing their influence. You no longer seek approval because you have discovered something infinitely more valuable: self-trust. And once you learn to trust yourself, the world becomes a place filled not with permission slips, but with possibilities. The day you stop asking the world for permission is the day your true life quietly begins. Chapter 4. Heal the relationship with yourself. Broken glass is obvious. Broken trust is unmistakable. Yet one of the deepest fractures a person can experience often remains invisible: the fracture between who they truly are and how they quietly treat themselves. No one else may notice it, but its consequences appear everywhere. It echoes through hesitant decisions, impossible standards, relentless guilt, and the exhausting belief that one mistake has the power to define an entire life. Many people spend years repairing relationships with family, friends, and colleagues, yet neglect the one relationship that follows them from the first breath to the last. The conversation they have with themselves becomes harsher than any critic could ever be. They forgive strangers more quickly than they forgive their own failures. They extend compassion to everyone except the person who needs it most. A remarkable paradox exists within human nature. We instinctively understand that growth requires patience when nurturing a child, planting a tree, or learning a new skill. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we often expect perfection immediately. The smallest setback becomes evidence of inadequacy. A single poor decision is transformed into a permanent identity. This is not discipline, it is emotional neglect disguised as high standards. Healing begins when we recognize that our mistakes deserve examination rather than condemnation. Every painful experience carries information, but not every painful experience deserves authority over our future. One of the greatest barriers to self-love is shame. Guilt says, "I made a mistake." Shame whispers, "I am the mistake." The distinction appears subtle, yet it changes everything. Guilt encourages responsibility because it focuses on behavior. Shame destroys confidence because it attacks identity. A person overwhelmed by guilt may apologize and improve. A person consumed by shame often withdraws, believing they are beyond redemption. This is why many people remain trapped in emotional cycles they desperately want to escape. They are not imprisoned by yesterday's events. They are imprisoned by yesterday's interpretation of those events. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every single day. At first, its weight feels manageable. Over time, another stone is added for every regret, another for every disappointment, another for every harsh word spoken to yourself. Eventually, the burden becomes so familiar that you mistake exhaustion for normality. You forget what it feels like to walk freely because you have grown accustomed to carrying unnecessary weight. Emotional healing begins the moment you decide to remove one stone at a time. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Many people believe forgiving themselves means excusing poor decisions or pretending painful events never happened. Genuine forgiveness does neither. Instead, it acknowledges the truth while refusing to remain permanently chained to it. Think about every meaningful lesson you have learned throughout your life. Chances are, many of them were born from mistakes rather than successes. Failure has always been one of humanity's greatest teachers, yet we frequently reject its education because the tuition feels uncomfortable. Every scar tells two stories. One speaks of pain, the other speaks of survival. Most people spend their lives staring only at the first. The relationship you build with yourself also determines the relationships you build with others. Someone who secretly believes they are unworthy often accepts treatment they would never recommend to a loved one. They tolerate disrespect because they confuse familiarity with love. They apologize for expressing needs because they fear becoming a burden. They remain silent to preserve peace while quietly sacrificing their own. Healthy relationships never require you to abandon yourself. The stronger your self-respect becomes, the less attractive unhealthy relationships appear. You no longer confuse attention with affection or approval with acceptance. Instead of asking, "Will they choose me?" you begin asking a far healthier question: are we both creating something worthy of trust? That subtle shift changes everything. Healing also requires releasing the impossible pursuit of perfection. Perfection promises certainty but delivers paralysis. It convinces people that they must become flawless before they deserve happiness, confidence, or love. Consequently, they postpone joy until they lose weight, earn more money, find the perfect partner, or achieve another milestone that always seems slightly beyond reach. Life quietly passes while they continue preparing to live it. Perfection is a horizon. No matter how far you travel, it keeps moving. Growth, however, is tangible. It can be experienced today. Every honest apology, every healthier boundary, every courageous conversation, every act of self-respect, every decision to begin again. These are the genuine milestones of transformation. Psychological research consistently suggests that self-compassion strengthens resilience rather than weakening it. Individuals who respond to setbacks with understanding instead of relentless self-criticism are often more willing to learn from mistakes because they no longer view failure as evidence of personal worthlessness. Compassion does not remove accountability. It creates the emotional safety necessary for accountability to flourish. Healing also demands patience. A broken bone requires weeks to recover. A deep emotional wound deserves no less kindness. Progress rarely unfolds in a straight line. Some mornings you will feel remarkably strong. On others, old doubts may unexpectedly return. This does not mean you are moving backwards. It simply means healing is unfolding in layers rather than leaps. A river does not carve through stone because of extraordinary force. It succeeds through extraordinary persistence. The same principle governs emotional growth. Small acts of self-respect, repeated consistently, reshape identity far more profoundly than dramatic promises made only once. Perhaps the greatest gift you can offer yourself is permission to become a work in progress. You are not required to have every answer today. You are not expected to erase every insecurity overnight. You simply need enough courage to continue choosing yourself, even on the days when confidence feels distant. Because healing is not the absence of pain. Healing is reaching a place where pain no longer controls the direction of your life. One day, You will look back and realize the person you spent years trying to forgive became the very person who taught you how to become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than you ever imagined possible. The moment you stop punishing yourself for yesterday is the moment tomorrow finally begins to welcome you. Chapter 5. Build confidence from the inside out. A skyscraper never reveals its greatest strength to the people walking past it. They admire the polished glass, the elegant architecture, and the impressive height. Yet none of those features keep the building standing. Its true strength lies underground, hidden beneath layers of concrete and steel. The deeper the foundation, the taller the structure can rise. Confidence works in exactly the same way. Many people devote enormous effort to polishing the visible parts of their lives. They improve their appearance, chase prestigious titles, purchase expensive possessions, and collect achievements in the hope that confidence will naturally follow. These accomplishments can certainly enrich life, but they cannot permanently replace an inner foundation. When confidence depends entirely on external circumstances, it rises and falls with every compliment, promotion, success, or setback. Authentic confidence is quieter than most people imagine. It is not loud, arrogant, or desperate to prove itself. It does not dominate conversations or constantly seek recognition. Genuine confidence simply knows where it stands. It walks into uncertainty without pretending to have every answer because it trusts its ability to learn along the way. The strongest people in a room are often the ones who feel no urgency to convince others of their strength. This is where many misunderstand confidence. They believe confidence creates action. More often, action creates confidence. Waiting to feel completely ready before taking the first step is like waiting for the sunrise before lighting a candle. Confidence is rarely present at the beginning of meaningful change. It develops gradually through repeated experiences that teach the mind one simple lesson: I can rely on myself. Self-trust is the true birthplace of confidence. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens that trust. Every promise you repeatedly break quietly weakens it. Imagine two friends. One consistently arrives on time, keeps their word, and follows through on commitments. The other frequently cancels plans, forgets promises, and makes excuses. Naturally, your trust in these two people would be very different. Curiously, most people understand this principle when dealing with others, but overlook it when dealing with themselves. Every morning you promise to exercise, but postpone it. You decide to establish healthier boundaries but remain silent. You promise to pursue a meaningful goal but repeatedly delay taking action. None of these decisions appear significant in isolation. Yet together they send an invisible message to your subconscious. My own promises cannot be trusted. Over time, this quiet betrayal erodes confidence far more effectively than failure ever could. Confidence is built through integrity, the alignment between what you say and what you consistently do. This is why small victories carry extraordinary power. Making your bed may not transform your life overnight. Reading 10 pages each day may seem insignificant. Taking a short walk after dinner may appear ordinary. Yet these seemingly modest actions cultivate something far more valuable than immediate results. They cultivate evidence. Every completed action whispers to your mind, I finish what I begin. Evidence changes identity. Motivation is emotional. Evidence is factual. When enough evidence accumulates, confidence stops feeling like wishful thinking and starts becoming a natural conclusion. Discipline also plays a misunderstood role in self-confidence. Many people view discipline as punishment or restriction. In reality, discipline is one of the highest expressions of self-respect. Every disciplined choice communicates that your future matters enough to deserve today's effort. Instead of limiting freedom, healthy discipline expands it. The discipline to manage money creates financial freedom. The discipline to care for your health creates physical freedom. The discipline to master emotions creates psychological freedom. Freedom is rarely the absence of structure. More often, it is the reward for maintaining it. Another misconception is that confident people never experience fear. Nothing could be further from reality. Fear accompanies nearly every worthwhile pursuit because growth always requires stepping beyond familiarity. The difference is not that confident people avoid fear. They simply refuse to grant fear the authority to make every important decision. Courage and confidence are close companions. Courage acts first. Confidence quietly follows behind. Body language also influences the relationship we have with ourselves. The mind and body continuously communicate with one another. Standing upright, maintaining eye contact, speaking clearly, and breathing steadily do more than influence how others perceive you. They subtly influence how you perceive yourself. Behavior often shapes emotion just as powerfully as emotion shapes behavior. This is not about pretending to be someone you are not. It is about allowing your physical presence to reflect the quiet strength you are intentionally developing within. Confidence also grows whenever you stop measuring yourself against impossible standards. Comparison invites endless dissatisfaction because someone will always appear wealthier, younger, stronger, smarter, or more accomplished. There is no finish line in that race because the destination constantly changes. Growth offers a healthier alternative. Instead of asking, "Am I better than someone else?" ask, "Am I becoming better than I was yesterday?" That question transforms competition into progress. Confidence flourishes where progress receives greater attention than perfection. It is equally important to celebrate achievements without immediately dismissing them. Many people accomplish remarkable things only to minimize their success. It wasn't that difficult. Anyone could have done it. I was just lucky. Imagine speaking to a close friend that way after witnessing one of their accomplishments. You probably wouldn't. Yet countless individuals unknowingly diminish every victory they earn. Celebrating progress is not arrogance, it is acknowledgement. Every milestone, regardless of size, deserves recognition because it reminds the mind that growth is taking place. Another powerful source of confidence comes from competence. The more deeply you invest in learning, practicing, and refining your abilities, the less dependent you become on empty reassurance. Competence transforms uncertainty into capability. Whether learning a language, developing a profession, improving communication skills, or strengthening emotional intelligence, every hour invested in improvement becomes another brick in the foundation of lasting confidence. Knowledge expands possibilities. Practice transforms possibilities into reality. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of confidence is that it remains available to everyone. It is not reserved for the naturally gifted, the exceptionally charismatic, or the endlessly successful. Confidence is constructed through ordinary choices, repeated with extraordinary consistency. Every honest conversation, every completed commitment, every courageous step, every lesson learned after failure, every promise honored when no one else is watching. These moments rarely attract public applause, yet they quietly shape the person you become. One day, someone may describe you as naturally confident. Only you will know the truth. They are not witnessing natural confidence. They are witnessing thousands of invisible decisions accumulated over time. The strongest confidence is never borrowed from admiration or success. It is earned through the quiet certainty that, regardless of what life presents tomorrow, you have become someone you can genuinely depend upon. Confidence is not the reward for becoming extraordinary. It is the inevitable result of repeatedly proving to yourself that your own word still matters. Chapter 6. Protect your peace. The loudest battles are not always fought in crowded rooms. Some unfold silently within the mind, where every unnecessary argument is replayed, every careless opinion is remembered, and every unwanted burden is carried long after the moment has passed. A person may appear calm on the outside while quietly waging a relentless war within. Peace is often misunderstood as the absence of problems. In reality, peace is the ability to remain rooted even when life becomes unpredictable. Storms are inevitable, but not every storm deserves permission to enter your heart. The greatest form of emotional maturity is learning to distinguish between what requires your attention and what merely demands your reaction. Many people lose their peace one small decision at a time. They answer every phone call even when exhausted. They agree to every request despite feeling overwhelmed. They defend themselves against every criticism. They compare their lives to strangers on social media. They carry responsibilities that were never theirs to begin with. Individually, these choices seem harmless. Together, they quietly consume emotional energy until there is little left for the things that truly matter. Inner peace is not found. It is protected. One of the most important ways to protect it is through healthy boundaries. Unfortunately, the word boundary is often mistaken for rejection or selfishness. Some believe that saying no means they no longer care about others. The truth is exactly the opposite. Boundaries do not push healthy people away. They simply reveal who was benefiting from your inability to establish them. Imagine a beautiful garden with no fence. Anyone can walk through it, pick its flowers, damage its plants, or leave behind rubbish. Over time, even the most vibrant garden begins to lose its beauty. The problem is not that the flowers lacked strength. The problem is that nothing protected them. Your emotional life works in much the same way. Without boundaries, other people's expectations gradually occupy every available space until your own needs become almost invisible. Learning to say no is not an act of hostility. It is an act of stewardship. Every time you decline something that drains your energy without serving your values, you create space for something that truly deserves your attention. This can feel uncomfortable at first. People who have always benefited from unlimited access to your time may not immediately welcome healthier boundaries. They may question your decisions or accuse you of changing. In many cases, they are right. You are changing. You are becoming someone who understands that kindness and self-sacrifice are not synonymous. One of the greatest thieves of peace is the desire to control what was never ours to control. We worry about how others perceive us. We replay conversations we cannot rewrite. We attempt to predict uncertain futures. We absorb problems that belong to someone else. Yet no amount of worrying has ever altered yesterday, and very little worrying improves tomorrow. The ancient philosopher Epictetus wisely observed that much of human suffering arises from confusing what lies within our control with what does not. Although centuries have passed, his insight remains remarkably relevant. Your effort belongs to you. Your integrity belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Other people's opinions do not. Their reactions do not. Their expectations do not. Freedom begins the moment you stop trying to manage lives that are not your own. Another modern challenge to inner peace is constant digital connection. Never before have people been so accessible. A notification interrupts breakfast. Another appears during work. Messages continue throughout the evening. Even moments of silence become opportunities to check another screen. The mind was never designed to remain permanently available. Just as muscles require recovery after physical effort, the mind requires periods of stillness to restore clarity. Silence is not empty. It is where perspective quietly returns. Protecting your peace may therefore require intentional distance from digital noise. Not because technology is harmful, but because uninterrupted attention has become one of the rarest and most valuable resources of modern life. Your attention shapes your reality. Where attention repeatedly goes, emotional energy naturally follows. This is equally true in relationships. Not every disagreement deserves an argument. Not every misunderstanding requires immediate resolution. Some people are committed to misunderstanding because agreement was never their objective. They seek conflict rather than clarity. Wisdom recognizes the difference. There is profound strength in walking away from conversations that exist only to wound. Silence is sometimes the most articulate response available. Emotional maturity also involves releasing the need to win every battle. Winning an argument while losing your peace is not victory. Likewise, proving someone wrong rarely changes their heart. More often, genuine influence grows through patience, consistency, and quiet character, rather than endless confrontation. Peace is strengthened through daily habits as much as dramatic decisions. A morning without rushing, a walk beneath open skies, reading a thoughtful book instead of endless headlines, choosing gratitude before complaint, listening before reacting, breathing deeply before responding. These small practices gradually reshape the emotional atmosphere of your life. The calmest people are rarely those with the easiest circumstances. They are often those who have learned to guard their inner world with deliberate care. Another important lesson is that protecting your peace sometimes requires disappointing people. This truth may initially feel uncomfortable, especially for those who have spent years placing everyone else's happiness before their own. But consider this carefully. If preserving someone else's temporary comfort requires sacrificing your long-term emotional health, the cost is simply too great. Relationships flourish when built upon mutual respect rather than endless obligation. People who genuinely value you will appreciate your honesty, even when it challenges their expectations. Those who value only your availability may resist your boundaries because they mistake access for entitlement. Do not confuse discomfort with wrongdoing. Growth often feels uncomfortable because it requires replacing old patterns with healthier ones. As your peace deepens, something remarkable begins to happen. Your reactions become slower, your decisions become wiser, your relationships become healthier, your confidence becomes quieter. Instead of chasing every opportunity, you choose the right ones. Instead of responding to every criticism, you preserve your dignity. Instead of allowing every storm to enter your heart, you allow many of them to pass overhead without disturbing your foundation. The world will always contain noise. There will always be demands competing for your attention, opinions competing for your agreement, and distractions competing for your focus. You cannot silence the world, but you can decide which voices deserve a place within you, and that decision may become one of the greatest acts of self-love you will ever practice. Peace is not created by controlling the world around you. It is protected by choosing what you allow to live within you. Chapter 7. Become someone you're proud of. Every masterpiece begins as ordinary material. A magnificent sculpture is hidden inside an unshaped block of marble. A towering oak once existed as a seed no larger than a fingertip. Greatness rarely arrives fully formed. It is patiently revealed through countless decisions that appear insignificant while they are being made. The same principle applies to human character. Most people dream of becoming successful, respected, or influential, yet surprisingly few ask a more meaningful question. Who am I becoming while I pursue those things? Achievement can impress the world, but character determines whether you can truly admire the person looking back at you in the mirror. There is a profound difference between building a successful life and building a meaningful one. Success may earn applause. Character earns peace. One of the greatest misunderstandings about personal growth is the belief that identity changes after extraordinary moments. We imagine that one life-changing event, a promotion, a marriage, a financial breakthrough, or a dramatic transformation will suddenly create a better version of ourselves. Real life unfolds differently. Identity is rarely transformed by a single event. It is quietly sculpted by ordinary choices repeated over many years. Every decision becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Every promise you honor casts another vote. Every excuse you overcome casts another vote. Every act of honesty, discipline, courage, or compassion gradually shapes your identity until one day people describe your character as though it appeared naturally. What they never see are the thousands of invisible choices beneath it. Imagine a river flowing through solid rock. At first glance, water seems far too gentle to reshape stone. Yet year after year, without rushing or forcing, the river patiently carves valleys that appear almost impossible. Persistence succeeds where force often fails. Character develops in much the same way. It is not intensity that changes a life. It is consistency. Many people become trapped in the pursuit of appearance rather than authenticity. They carefully manage how others perceive them while quietly neglecting who they are when nobody is watching. They protect their reputation but ignore their integrity. Yet reputation is merely someone else's opinion. Integrity is your relationship with yourself. One can disappear overnight. The other remains with you for life. This is why self-respect grows whenever your actions and values begin to align. Imagine promising yourself that you will become healthier. When you consistently honor that commitment, your confidence deepens, not simply because your body changes, but because your mind begins recognizing that your words have become trustworthy. Now imagine repeatedly abandoning those same commitments. Each broken promise sends another subtle message. My own priorities are negotiable. Eventually, self-doubt follows, not because you lack ability, because trust has quietly eroded. The remarkable truth is that self-respect is earned internally long before it is recognized externally. There is another question worth asking. What standards govern your life when no one is watching? Character reveals itself in private long before it appears in public. It is choosing honesty when deception would be easier, remaining kind when bitterness feels justified, continuing to learn after achieving success, keeping your word even when breaking it would go unnoticed. These decisions rarely receive applause, yet they determine whether you eventually admire the person you have become. Purpose also plays a powerful role in personal identity. Without purpose, people often drift toward convenience. With purpose, inconvenience becomes easier to endure because every sacrifice carries meaning. Purpose is not necessarily a profession, nor is it always a grand ambition that changes the world. Sometimes, purpose simply means living each day in a manner consistent with your deepest values. To become someone worthy of admiration, begin by becoming someone worthy of your own respect. The pursuit of perfection often distracts people from this far more meaningful objective. Perfection asks, how can I avoid mistakes? Growth asks, how can I become wiser because of them? The first creates fear, the second creates resilience. Your failures are not interruptions to your development. They are among its most valuable teachers. Every disappointment contains hidden instruction. Every obstacle strengthens emotional endurance. Every difficult season quietly develops qualities that comfort never could. Coal transforms into diamond only after enduring extraordinary pressure. Steel gains strength through intense heat. Likewise, human character often develops most profoundly during seasons we once wished to avoid. Adversity has a remarkable ability to reveal priorities. When life becomes difficult, superficial ambitions gradually lose their importance. Titles become less meaningful than integrity. Possessions become less valuable than peace. Approval becomes less attractive than authenticity. Hardship often strips away illusion until only character remains. This is one reason why deeply admirable people are rarely those who have lived the easiest lives. More often, they are individuals who allowed suffering to refine them instead of hardening them. Humility also deserves careful attention. As confidence grows, humility ensures that confidence remains grounded rather than becoming arrogance. True confidence does not announce itself. It listens carefully, learns continuously, admits mistakes without defensiveness, celebrates others without jealousy. It understands that growth never truly ends. The greatest leaders remain lifelong students. The wisest people continue asking thoughtful questions. The strongest individuals never stop improving. There will always be someone wealthier, someone more talented, someone more experienced. Comparing yourself endlessly with them will only distract you from your own remarkable journey. The only comparison that genuinely serves your growth is between the person you were yesterday and the person you are becoming today. If today's decisions reflect greater wisdom than yesterday's, progress is already taking place, and progress deserves celebration. Eventually, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing admiration. You begin living in a manner that naturally inspires it, not because you demanded recognition, but because your life quietly communicates consistency, integrity, courage, kindness, and purpose. People notice individuals who possess an uncommon sense of peace, not because those individuals have perfect lives, but because they have become people whose character remains steady regardless of changing circumstances. That is one of life's greatest accomplishments. To become someone whose confidence is rooted in values rather than vanity, whose success reflects integrity rather than appearance, whose happiness is created from within rather than borrowed from the outside. One day, success will fade. Titles will change. Appearances will evolve. Circumstances will inevitably shift. When those seasons arrive, one question will remain. Can you genuinely admire the person you have become? If the answer is yes, then you possess something far more valuable than temporary success. You possess a life built upon unshakable character. The greatest achievement is not becoming someone the world admires. It is becoming someone your own conscience is proud to call you. Chapter 8. Love yourself every day. A tree does not become strong in a single season. It grows a little each day, quietly reaching deeper into the ground while stretching higher toward the sky. Self-love grows the same way. It is not created by one powerful moment, but by small choices made consistently. Many people believe they will love themselves once they become more successful, attractive, or accomplished. In reality, self-love comes first. It is the foundation that gives you the confidence to grow into the person you want to become. Self-love is reflected in your daily actions. It is choosing healthy habits, getting enough rest, protecting your peace, speaking kindly to yourself, and keeping the promises you make to yourself. These simple actions send a powerful message. I am worthy of care and respect. Take time each day to reflect on your progress instead of focusing only on your mistakes. Celebrate even the smallest victories, because lasting success is built one step at a time. Every lesson learned, every fear faced, and every healthy choice made strengthens your relationship with yourself. It is also important to let go of comparison. Someone will always seem more successful or more talented. Instead of measuring your life against others, compare yourself with the person you were yesterday. Real growth is personal, and every improvement deserves recognition. There will be days when confidence feels natural, and days when self-doubt returns. That is part of being human. Loving yourself does not mean feeling positive all the time. It means choosing compassion over criticism and continuing to move forward even after setbacks. As these small acts become habits, they slowly shape your identity. Confidence grows, peace becomes stronger, and happiness no longer depends on outside approval. The relationship you build with yourself becomes the foundation for every other relationship in your life. Remember, extraordinary lives are rarely created by extraordinary moments. They are built through ordinary days filled with intentional choices. Every day you choose to respect, forgive, and believe in yourself, you become a little stronger than the day before. Self-love is not a single decision. It is a daily habit that quietly transforms your entire life. Conclusion. The most meaningful relationship you will ever build is not with success, wealth, or another person. It is with yourself. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every promise you keep, and every act of self-compassion strengthens the foundation upon which the rest of your life is built. Loving yourself is not about becoming perfect. It is about accepting that you are worthy of respect, growth, and happiness exactly where you are, while continuing to become who you are capable of being. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and seasons of uncertainty, but none of them have the power to define your worth unless you allow them to. As you close this book, remember that self-love is not a destination waiting somewhere in the future. It is a daily decision, a quiet commitment to treat yourself with the same kindness, patience, and respect that you freely offer to those you love. The world will always ask you to be more, achieve more, and prove more. Instead of chasing every expectation, choose to remain true to your values, protect your peace, and trust your own journey. When you build a strong relationship with yourself, confidence becomes natural, happiness becomes deeper, and fulfillment becomes lasting. Never forget, the person you see in the mirror will accompany you through every success, every challenge, and every new beginning. Make that relationship your greatest investment, and every other part of your life will begin to flourish. The day you truly become your own best friend is the day life stops feeling like a battle and starts becoming a beautiful journey.